Hello and welcome again to another episode of the Long Gone Loser Rock Show. Today we're going to talk about Nirvana.
Nirvana's three guys from Puget Sound area, Olympia, Bainbridge Island, and Tacoma. Nirvana is a 7-letter word, and Nirvana is a concept.
Nirvana is a three-piece underground alternative grunge rock band from Seattle, Washington, or the outskirts of Seattle, Washington, and that's about it. I mean, that's what we are.
Nirvana are three people, me and my two friends, Kurt and Chris, and Nirvana, well, I'll give you the meaning. It's kind of like, it's like the freedom from like all pain and desire, you know, just a perfect place between peace in your mind, I guess.
Now here's my history of Nirvana. It's actually quite simple. Way back when I was in high school, there was a guy that I used to hang out with. His name was Ben, and he was always tapped into, you know, what was happening and knew things like that from, like, you know, other parts of the world. I was really focused on like independent music, like the Hard-Ons and the Australian stuff, right? You know, that's what I was really getting into. All the Australian bands that were happening around the Waterfront Records era. And Ben was always focused on what was going on overseas. So I don't know whether, I think he was just reading magazines all the time or whatever. And I remember him bringing the album Bleach by Nirvana to school and playing it in our art class or design class, one of the two. Basically, the teacher would let us play our own tapes there, and he brought it in and said, check this out. This is a band that I'm really into. It's really awesome. And he put on Bleach, and I mean, I was so focused on the Australian stuff, I didn't really care for it that much. I mean, I didn't hate it. By all means, I did not hate it. I just wasn't clicking with it because I was so into, you know, the power pop punks, Ramonesy stuff of, like, you know, the bands that I was listening to, like the Hard-Ons, and also the other stuff that came around, like Nursery Crimes. I was hugely into them. The Exploding White Mice from Adelaide. All of this sort of Australian stuff, the Spunk Bubbles, anything that was like that. Although, you know, even the UK stuff like the Stupids I was really into because I love the Stupids. You know, but just bands like that, the Proton Energy Pills, Tumbleweed, all that sort of stuff was going on, and I was really into it. Now, he brought Bleach to school, and basically he would rave about it. Now, at that time also, I remember I was discovering bands like Green Day and Screeching Weasel and all that sort of stuff as well. So that's really where my focus was. It wasn't really the you know, quote unquote grunge stuff that was going on. Around this time, I also remember getting into bands like Mudhoney, and I really did love that first EP by Mudhoney. In fact, I love everything of Mudhoney's, as you would have seen in the previous videos that I've done on Mudhoney and stuff like that. I love Mudhoney. They're an amazing band. I've seen them countless times. They still kill it. They've always killed it. They've just been such a great band, you know, with their output quality of albums and whatever. So for some reason, Nirvana still hadn't caught on to me. Now, we all know what happened. Nirvana blew up big time with the album Nevermind. Things changed. And I guess what it could do, and I remember having this conversation with Noodles from Offspring when I was interviewing him once, and I asked him about the 1994 punk rock explosion and how that happened, and, you know, like, were they ready for it or whatever. And he said that Nirvana was the band that did that. Basically, once Nirvana broke, it opened up the floodgates and punk just came charging through, you know, with the likes of Green Day, Rancid, Offspring, NoFX, Blink-182, whatever you want to call it. And so I just remember back in, I can't remember, the early 2000s, maybe it was, I started to go back and re-listen to Nirvana because everyone was already into them. You know, they'd blown up massive. I just, like I said, I didn't hate it. I just wasn't listening to it because I was into so much different stuff at the time. In 1994, you know, we all know what happened in 1994. There was a big explosion of punk rock with Green Day and Offspring. You know, Green Day's album Dookie came out, the 1st of February. Offspring came out around about the end of March. Kurt Cobain dies April 5th. His body is found around April 8th. I remember this day still clear in my mind because I was at home, I was watching TV, I was probably playing Sega Mega Drive or whatever, and as soon as we turned it off, it came on the news or the TV that Kurt Cobain had died. And it was pretty insane because I remember that moment, it seemed like the whole world went quiet. Nirvana affected so many people, you know, in such a good positive way. Like people really feel connected to their music. I wasn't. I was never connected to Nirvana's music in that way, the way people were connected to Nirvana, the way that they thought that, you know, Kurt Cobain could do no wrong, or, you know, that he was just a god or whatever. I never saw Nirvana like that. But I understand that he meant to them what the Ramones mean to me, you know, and it was pretty, you know, intense to see that for the next day or so, Nirvana was everywhere. Like, it was just full on, like, you know, like, you couldn't go anywhere without people talking about it. I remember seeing the group ceremonies, holding candles and stuff for Kurt Cobain. I remember the music scene was talking about it because Nirvana were huge. Like, they really were huge. I mean, we all know how big Nirvana were. Well, I mean, if you were there, I mean, if you came afterwards, you might not have realised how big Nirvana were. But Nirvana were fucking huge. But anyway, I had, like, you know, my MP3 downloads or whatever, my cassette tape copies of, you know, of Bleach, because I thought, you know what, I'm going to go back and listen to it. And I went back and listened to Bleach, and I was like, this is a really good record. Like, it still has that punk thing. So, you know, this whole quote-unquote grunge thing that was spoken about came obviously way later. You know, what was going on with Bleach was a straight-up punk rock record. You know, you listen to it, I mean, I heard it was recorded for like $600, you know, and for the amount of copies that it sold and for how big it came, that's pretty awesome. Here is my copy of Bleach. This is a double LP reissue. This comes with a live album. As you can see, the live songs are there. And it really does give you a pretty good idea of how they sounded back then. Like, they did have that punk rock thing going on. And, you know, this live show's really good. Like, it's a really, really good live show. This is some sort of, like, anniversary edition of the album. It says on here, 2009. Okay, this version came out in 2009. So I must have got it around that time. I remember I got it from JB Hi-Fi. And, yeah, so for those who have never seen this edition before, it's got a gatefold. So as you can see, the band is there. And then it also comes with this booklet of photos and stuff like that. So, you know, I'll take you through this booklet because why not? So you can see what this booklet's all about. And to, you know, to get an idea for those who've never seen this edition, you've got these really cool photos. There you go. I'm sure most of these photos were taken by Charles Peterson, who was like one of the greatest photographers of that era of music. I mean, I'm sure he's still taking photos now. I really kept up with his work. But I do have his book. What's that book called? Screaming Life. Screaming Life, it's called. But yeah, like my Nirvana output or record collection is very minimal. I was in America in 2012 and I bought all these like 7-inch Nirvana bootlegs and ended up selling them all when I got back to Australia because I listened to them and they just weren't for me. I just thought that they might be as cool as this album Bleach, but they just didn't do anything for me. I got them from Restless Records in Chicago. In fact, this is the only thing I kept from that trip was the Sliver 7-inch. I like this song. This song rules. And the B-side has Dan Peters from Mudhoney playing drums. So there you go. It's called Dive. And the A side is Sliver. Sliver was covered by the Gaslight Anthem. They do a really, really good version of it. Sliver is a great song. It really is. This one's on standard black vinyl. It's just the Sub Pop thing. I never had the Love Buzz 7-inch or anything like that. So, like I said, my Nirvana collection is very, very small. Just because, never mind, I've never owned a copy of. I mean, I don't hate it. I've just heard those songs a million times and I'm just not in a rush to go out and buy that record. I know that a lot of people love In Utero, especially because there's a version out there that has... I want to find this version. It's a double LP. I think it came out for Record Store Day. Second record is, I think, the Steve Albini mix, which was the original mix that they did, and they handed it to the record company, and they said, we're not going to release that. Go back and do it again, or something like that. I can't remember the story, and I'm probably way wrong, but if you are a Nirvana historian, you can leave it in the comments below what the real story behind that is. I can't remember. Like I said, I'm not a die-hard Nirvana fan, but I really do like this record. Oh, by the way, in case you're wondering, there was a band from the 60s called Nirvana. This is their record. And these guys came to some sort of, like, lawsuit or something. Something happened, like someone got sued. I don't know whether Kurt sued them or they sued Kurt or whatever. But it was settled for like $2,000 or something like that for Nirvana to use the name or something like that. But there you go, 60s garage rock. It's kind of like the Kinks, Manfred Mann, you know, that sort of stuff. Pretty Things, all that sort of stuff. I like it. It's not bad. I don't love it, but I still think it's really good. There's some good songs on here that are worth checking out. So if you've never heard the 60s Nirvana, there's your album. I do have this bootleg of Bleach. It says Waterfront Records as the label. Now, the Waterfront Records version of Bleach, an official one, is like, it sells for stupid amounts of money on the secondary market. I don't know why. It's just a fucking record, and it's, you know, I get it, it's Nirvana, but it's just Bleach, and you can buy a copy of Bleach anywhere. I don't know what's so special about having it on Waterfront. I bought this one for super cheap, like $20 or something, maybe even less, but just because I just collect anything that's on Waterfront, because I'm doing a documentary on the Waterfront Records label. And I'm doing a book on the label as well. And unfortunately, the Nirvana record might have to get missed because I don't own a copy, and I'm trying to get all the artwork correct and everything, you know, correct for the book. I can't have shit that's incorrect, and this is a bootleg, so I'm assuming it's not 100% correct. Now, you could be saying, why don't you just photograph of somebody else's copy or whatever? Well, first of all, I have to find someone who wants to lend me that record for the X amount of days, weeks, months, years that it's going to take to finish this book. And I don't think I should hold on to somebody's records for that long, because if they were mine, I'd be pretty pissed too. Nirvana toured Australia in 1992. I remember them playing at the Thebarton Theatre with the Meanies and Tumbleweed. I did not go. I do remember that people were raving about it. It was like a big deal. They released this EP for it called Hormoning. Now, the thing about this one, this is not a legit copy. This is a bootleg. And for those who have never seen a bootleg copy of this, it's missing all this shit, like the shower heads there. There's some stuff on the counter and whatever that's all gone. It's fucking stupid that they've blurred shit out or just like made it disappear. Like, you can kind of see here where they've made it blurry or some shit like that, where you can obviously they've used the Photoshop to get rid of it. This was like super duper cheap. They did reissue it on Record Store Day. Here you go. This is on a coloured vinyl, grey or some shit. But it sounds exactly the same. It is a bootleg, but it's exactly the same. So I ended up buying this super cheap after that Record Store Day release came out because I couldn't get it. So I thought, well, fuck it. I'll just get the cheap EP. So anyway, that's my story with Nirvana. It's not that exciting, but it is what it is. So to this day, I still haven't, become this big Nirvana fan. I don't know why. Maybe someday I'll go back and I'll, listen to their entire catalogue and see what I think, because people keep telling me, no, you've got to get into Nirvana. You've got to get into Nirvana. Like I keep telling them, I don't hate them. I have nothing against the band. I love Bleach, but it's just like, I just haven't done a deep dive because I've heard the songs so many times. So I've not sat there and done the big, I'm going to sit down, and listen to every riff or whatever and try and get it. Because it's just, I don't know, I'll get to it someday. But, today's not that day. But like I said, not saying they're a bad band, no shade to Nirvana at all. People love them, and I get it. Like, they love them the way that I love the Ramones. And that's totally cool, because you should love a band, because there should be a band that you can relate to that's your band, because it's just, why not? Music's for all of us, and music is awesome. So if you can actually connect with a band on that level where the music speaks to you or something, there's something special about that, and nobody can take that away from you. So anyway, thank you so much for watching another episode of the Long Gone Loser Rock Show. Go buy some records. Go buy a copy of Bleach. I will see you in the next video. Take care of yourselves and look after each other. Bye-bye.